Good morning and welcome back to the lecture series on Partition of India in Print Media and Cinema. So, today we are going to discuss about the subaltern and her role, her presence in the larger discourse on partition. So, how the subaltern's understanding destabilizes the traditional making or formation of historiography. The other or woman is constituted outside, and so in the symbolic order of the nation, the subaltern other is not seen as an active agent. The subaltern is important. The subaltern's presence, corporeal presence and the temporality, this remainder cannot be symbolized by the existing interplay of political forces. The subaltern is characterized by a surplus of temporal potentiality. The perspective of the subaltern's reality can reorganize the nation's relationship to its past. Now, the nation and its hegemonic history writing traditionally does not recognize the abject figure of the subaltern. Who is the subaltern? Any person that does not participate in the writing of the national history or historiography. Such a person could belong to the grassroots, could be the woman or the specially abled, the juvenile. So, they are acted upon by the history and are not enactors. So, I was also talking about the relation between activism and agency. We need to understand that the subaltern's agency is not always available in her or his activism. Sometimes the subaltern's activism feeds the purpose of the mainstream nation building. Acknowledging the subaltern introduces a bifurcation into the causal path of the linear and teleological national time. So, the subaltern has disruptive potentialities. They essentially disquiet the the safe and unified meaning of nation and nationality in the enactment of the political through the temporal disruption. The inclusion or the figure of the subaltern raises a question such as who belongs to the political community and who is left out. So, the subaltern corporeal temporality disturbs any form of singular national truth through recoursing to multiple parallel temporal universes. So, the presence of the subaltern challenges the nation's myth of being a singular unitary subject through bringing in multiple parallel temporal universes and meanings. The fusion of the national true past with the subaltern past causes differences and moments of destabilizations that question the teleologically determined narrative. Homi Bhabha would say that the subaltern's presence and temporality reveal the ambivalence that structures the national linear time. Subaltern's relationship with a given space and time provides the potential for revisiting the national hegemonic past. The presence of the subaltern's memory that is capable of activating a new future. The moment of a subaltern telling their story in public is a way of breaking the hegemonic distribution of post-independent national history and truth. So, the subalterns' accounts expose and debunk the ruptures that cut through the national body politic. The subalterns' version of past renders discontinuous temporality and brings forth the other pasts and presences that have hitherto not been attended by formal historiography. So, there is continuous reimagining, reproduction underplaying the imagined unitary national identity. So, their temporality shifts political judgment and entails that the criteria for history be renegotiated, be negotiated anew. So, subaltern enables himself or herself to be seen and heard as speaking subjects. So, through having the subaltern's version in history, their invisibilized position is actually revisited, it is problematized. One understands that the subaltern's invisibility is not natural, it needs to be questioned. So, the subjects in the new form of history that is written from below, the subjects engage in a radical political practice that displaces the limits of social exclusions. Let us look at example of subaltern histories. So, for example, Badri Narayan Tiwari studies the memorial stones and the shrines in different regions of Uttar Pradesh that commemorate the unsung Dalit heroes from 1857, their roles in the Sepoy mutiny. So, for the Dalits in these regions, these minor monuments, the stories, they attest to the stories and legends of the heroes from their own community, and these local heroes, local Dalit heroes in UP villages are deified, and so these marginalized Dalit rebels are commemorated through the stones that are called Shahid Baba by the local villagers, and they are offered homemade sweets, and they are worshipped as Dalit icons. They have a demigod status in their localities and among the local Dalit populace. So, we see that by the early 1980s, a new historiographical school emerges that challenges the existing premises of formal historiography, and we have historians writing about peasant revolts, about the different experiences, the different stance of people from the grassroots. So, we have writers such as Ranajit Guha, who pioneered the study of Indian history from below. So, the subaltern studies school provided an alternative history from the populist nationalist struggle, and by the early 1990s, the impact of an alternative history from the subaltern's point of view started to permeate partition studies, and so there was a trend, a new trend being set to move away from studying only the nationalist heroes and understanding 1947 only in terms of India's independence from British rule, and so the approach towards history was essentially from below. There was renewed focus and interest on refugee experiences and actions during and after partition, which revealed a significant historiographical shift in theorizing the nature of migrations. the experience of the refugees, the process of or the journey of the refugee into becoming a citizen. So, the recent emphasis on oral history is also a part of the subaltern studies. It is a means of recovering the undiscovered, the under-researched areas of partition, the untold experiences, and which would go on to reveal how the master narratives are created through excluding or marginalizing narratives of other lesser powerful groups. So, Dalits that migrated to West Punjab and Delhi were from different subcastes. For example, some of them were from ex-criminal tribes in West Punjab, and the criminal tribe refugees were later added into the list of the scheduled castes. So, these are the facts that were being more discussed under the school of subaltern studies. So, the use of oral history and memory opens up new discussions on the differential experiences of the Dalits against the backdrop of 1947 partition. So, Dalits start writing their own autobiographies. Dalits write autobiographies and memoirs which add a greater complexity to the existing partition discourse. It makes the entire discussion well rounded and more symmetrical and more nuanced. So, more layered. Dalits had remained less discussed in the context of partition, and yet they were the ones that had put up with the worst form of ramifications. So, one sees the real accounts of Dalit refugees in the case of, for example, in the case of the Bhils in Delhi that have migrated from West Pakistan, although they were originally all from Rajasthan, and their settlements were close to Jodhpur and Udaipur. So, these are the mini narratives that the historians get interested in. They discuss about the lesser figures in and their roles, their perspectives vis-a-vis partition. So, Bilbasti, the case of Bilbasti in West Delhi, it is a refugee colony, and the narratives of the refugees in Bilbasti reveal that they were not allotted houses. So, their way of resettlement was much different from the upper castes, the upper caste refugees. They lived in shanties and they worked at the quarry sites, and that is where they would settle down temporarily. These settlements near Karol Bagh eventually transformed into pakka constructed houses, and that is how the colony of the Bilbasti dwellers was transformed. So, celebrates stories about women, the female martyrs that belong to suppressed communities, names such as Jhalkari-bai, Avanti-bai, Panna-dhai, Uda Devi and Mahaviri Devi are actually are narrated in the context of the first freedom struggle and the roles of the Dalits. So, the Dalit narrative of first freedom struggle includes a number of women martyrs from the suppressed communities, and so it adds new meanings to the image and imagination of martyr itself. Martyr does not necessarily mean a person coming from an upper caste or from an elite background, or even that the person is a male. So, all these conceptions are revisited when we have the the subalterns taking part and becoming agents in the formation, in the project of or in the shaping of the post-colonial history. So, historiography of the partition of India and historical narratives generally focuses on violence among religious groups. So, partition is synonymous with violence among major groups like Hindus, Muslims and Sikhs, and in these narratives Dalits find themselves silenced, and there is a general notion that Dalits were not targeted. There were no caste based conflicts in partition, but the divides were only in the line of religion. So, one reason for the perception is that both the sides, India and Pakistan, used the Dalits, exploited the Dalits as low wage workers in the agricultural fields and in the industries. So, the possibility of Dalits entering the space of academia, academic discussion and etching their own representation in literature was initially thought as impossible. So, Dalits who traditionally belong to the fringes, to the peripheries of each society, each community, I mean did not have any experience to tell. That was the general assumption. So, the narratives by the Dalits, the violence that they faced during partition actually disquiets the existing nationalist narrative that we have. So, when communal representation politics entered in India, religious conversion became a political tool. We have already spoken about how communities were suddenly looking at numbers and there was a competition in numbers. So, the revivalists, the reformists were thinking of, in the case of the Hindus, Brahminizing the Dalits and taking them back into the fold of a Hindu community. That was seen as urgently important. So, religious conversion was a political tool, and the Dalits were suffering. The Dalits were rendered a passive status in this entire process. On the one hand, the Dalits did have some bargaining power. On the other, they became a target of representative politics. So, the Dalits got sucked into these dyadic or rather triadic communal fight. These three communities, the Hindus, Muslims and Sikhs, were competing with each other to attract and patronize Dalits within their fold, and thereby so Dalits were suddenly becoming important in terms of the numbers that they could add to an existent major community in India. Even in the recent times, one sees the violence on the Dalits in Pepsu meaning the Patiala and East Punjab States Union. So, that is where the Dalits experience violence, and they are attacked and brutalized in the census related disturbances. So, Dalits have time and again been subjected to forced conversion. They have been attacked by Hindus, Muslims, Sikhs alike, and yet these sub narratives, if we may, actually disappear in our bid to celebrate the larger pictures and the high flown names, the lofty images and the heroic ideals, and in our bid to lionize the nationalist heroes, we tend to disremember, we tend to obfuscate the alternative histories of the lesser powerful that also constitute a significant population in India. So, with this I would like to conclude today's lecture, and let us meet again for the next round of discussions. Thank you.